What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos. My name is Adrian, and today we're doing something a little different. Normally, I would upload a podcast on Friday mornings, but I really wasn't able to get anybody to come join me this week, so I figured we'd just kind of do something a little different. And being that next week is a holiday, I figured I'd take a break on this Friday and next Friday being Black Friday on the podcast. But we're still going to upload some content on our regular schedule here. And we're just going to do things a little bit differently this week. So hopefully you guys still enjoy this type of content. So basically what we're doing is we're getting ready for our shop championship this weekend. Obviously I did a deck profile earlier this week with Skillless Gohan. That's the deck I'm going to be taking into the shop championship. I've been testing it a lot online, in person, and you know, I've been having a lot of success with it. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. But I did make a slight change to it that I kind of wanted to share with you guys today, so you guys can have the updated deck list moving forward in case you want to try it yourself. So the first thing we're going to go over is the adjustments I made to the main board, and then we're going to go over the sideboard, because obviously that's going to be matchup dependent and meta dependent also, but I definitely think there's a couple of cards in there that would be beneficial to a majority of strategies. So the first thing I want to talk about is I made a change in the main deck with Super Icy Ray. So I took Super Ice Ray out and I replaced it with, let me see if I can just pull it up here so I can go over it with you guys. I actually replaced it with the Ice Shenron the Cryomancer. Now hear me out. So Super Ice Ray was testing really well. We did a tech talk discussion about it, having that dual interaction, being able to interact with unisons and battle cards. But I noticed that there was a little bit of an issue with Super Ice Ray. It's an extra card. And, sometimes there's not always an application for it, especially because it only targets 4 or less. So either they're tapping 4 or less for a unison, or they're bringing out a battle card that's 4 or less, and granted, they can't have deflect. So I found a lot of the times I was either charging it early, or it was getting stuck in my hand late, and I was shuffling it away with the super combo. So I looked at the card pool, and I was talking to my one of my best friends, Enrique. Shout out to him for giving me the idea also. I was looking at the card pool, and I was seeing what type of card does similar effect, but is a little bit more, I could utilize it a little better. And I came across Ice Shenron the Cryomancer. Now, obviously, we are running 2 Piccolos in the main board, which I really like it. Piccolo's been doing, very well in testing. Counterplay for 2 on your opponent's turn. The card that they're playing 4 or less comes in with no skills, so basically skills are negated, which is huge, because if there's an activate main or an auto or a unison that they want to uptick, that definitely stops them from doing that. So Piccolo's been testing really well. And I had the Super Ice Ray in there just to have the opposite effect of, okay, if it's something that I don't really care about the effect going off, but it's a huge battle card or I can't deal with it, let me just bring it out in rest mode, so it's 1 less attack I have to worry about. That's what Icy Ray was in there for. But now I'm looking at Ice Shenron, and he's pretty much the same exact card, like the same effect as Super Ice Ray, but in battle card form. Now, there are some trade-offs, there are some pros, there are some cons, but we're going to go over them. So, Ice Shenron the Cryomancer is a 2-drop yellow, 15k power, 5k combo, counterplay. If your leader is mono yellow, play this card, and the card being played is played in rest mode. So, it targets unisons, it targets battle cards, but the good thing about him is that there's no cost restriction. There's no cost restriction. If your leader card is mono yellow, play this card, and the card being played is played in rest mode. So you can hit a 6-drop, you can hit a 5-drop, you can hit an 8-drop. As long as it doesn't have deflect, you can hit it. A unison that upticks that comes out for more than 4, you'll be able to deal with it. So he has a much larger range of coverage than Super Ice Ray. So yeah, he does bring them in rest mode, so it's 1 less thing you have to worry about as far as a battle card or anything like that. If they're tapping 6 energy for a huge play, and as long as they don't have deflect, you can stop it. So the other effect is really irrelevant because we're not playing a Shadow Dragon leader, so I'm not going to go over it. but having that flexibility with your counterplay, it's a 2-drop 15k body, so it's very similar to Piccolo. I can use it offensively if I need to, and the best part about it is it's a battle card, so it's a 5k combo in my hand, worst case scenario. So if I'm ever in a pinch and I need to combo out of something, Super Ice Ray was clunky because I wasn't able to do anything with it. Ice Shenron, I'll be able to at least combo it out, you know, worst case scenario. So I definitely made that adjustment, and it's been doing, you know, pretty well. I was able to get a couple of games on Untap today, and a lot of people don't see this card coming. So granted, when you're playing your skill list, if you have your Unison out, as soon as he hits the board, he has no more skills, which is irrelevant because the counterplay timing is what you're really looking for. But the fact that he can hit any battle card regardless of cost, you know, Secret Rare Broly is a huge issue for this deck because he shuts off all of your combo power. So if I'm able to bring him out in rest mode, it's one less thing I have to worry about with a double striker, and then maybe I could deal with it on a follow-up turn. But there's just a lot of applications for it. So that's one adjustment that I made for the main deck. Now, when we're going over the side deck, we're going to talk about the cards that I'm going to be siding this weekend. It's very meta dependent, right? So it really depends on what players in your area are you know, using. So if we're looking at the format, you know, the 3 boogeymen in the format would be Red Broly, Swap, Vegex, and Gotenks. Those are the 3 boogeymen. And what do those decks have in common? Well, they can be played hyper aggressive, but they can also recover very well because of Gotenks' draw power, Broly's utilization of swap, and Vegex's ability to play battle cards for free without using energy. They can recover. So there's a couple of different things when you're playing against those specific leaders that you have to take into consideration. So I think my side deck, we're going to go over it right now. I built for the specific meta that we're playing in, but I also have a couple of tech options just in case I run into some matchups, like some rogue matchups that I have a little bit of difficulty with. So the first card I want to go over in the side deck is Secret Identity Masayan. This guy is a house. He's an Overwhelm for 6 for free. You don't have to tap any energy. When you play this card using Overwhelm, choose any number of your opponent's battle cards that add up to cost of 6 or less and send them to the warp. So he's really good for decks that go wide. So for example, if you're playing in a mirror match or you're playing against a Kid Q deck, you know, anything that you want to get off the board that's the little weenies and stuff like that, even against Vegex, it's really good because you can get rid of the Supreme Kais, you can get rid of the blockers, and that's one less thing that you have to worry about. But it also hits 6 drops. So Dark Broly, Broly BR, and Gotenks. You know, Grim Reaper has Deflect, but he doesn't have Barrier. So Secret Identity Masayan can get rid of those cards, especially if you're having an issue with those matchups. He's definitely a lot more applicable in the Vegex matchup because you can hit multiple targets. Like if your opponent just bursts a whole bunch of Supreme Kais into the drop area, you can warp them off the board. Yeah, they'll be able to get them back with the power burst, but you know, it's one less application that they can use that card for. There's more efficient removal for big boys, which is the next card we're going to go over. It's an older card. It's a champion pack promo from I want to say he came out in like set 5 champ packs. But I'm not exactly sure like when he came out. But he is a promo. He might be a little bit harder to get your hands on, but he's very, very crucial, I believe. It's Bardock Fully Unleashed. So Bardock Fully Unleashed is an Overwhelm 5 for free, no energy. Auto, when you play this card using Overwhelm, choose all of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 6 or more and send them to the warp. So he's basically going to get rid of all of your opponent's battle cards that are tall. Now, when you're looking at the format, there's a lot of decks that go tall as opposed to go wide. Whereas Secret Identity might be more effective against decks that go wide, Fully Unleashed might be more effective against decks that go tall. So if you're looking at the format, like we said, Broly, Vegex, and Gotenks, Broly and Gotenks both play 6-drop battle cards very effectively. You know, whether it's Broly going up the swap chain or if it's Gotenks playing Grim Reaper. Now, Fully Unleashed hits all battle cards that are 6 or more. So if your Broly opponent goes into multiple chains and they go into 6 and 8 drops, or if your Gotenks matchup has more than one Grim Reaper on the board, Bardock is going to be able to deal with them very effectively because he's going to send them to the warp. Yes, Gotenks players will be able to get their materials back, I believe, because he's leaving the battle area, but it's still something in the warp that they can't get back. Same thing with Red Broly. If you can survive their onslaught and then you get rid of the upper part of their chain, they have to reset the entire chain with the 1-drop, go all the way back up, and now they're going to have less targets to go into because you just warped their 8-drops away. So that's definitely something to look into. And as far as any application against rogue decks, the Gogeta deck, even though the Gogeta deck is not very heavily played, Bardock Fully Unleashed is perfect against it. Why? Because Gogeta cannot be KO'd. So even if you swing an over combo, he won't be able to get removed from the field. But there's nothing stopping Gogeta from being sent to the warp. And Bardock Fully Unleashed does that very, very well. Granted, most Gogeta players are playing strategies of Universe 7, which is going to give him barrier. But, you know, if for some reason they don't, or they don't have it, you know, to play it on the 6-drop, you know, you can get them right off of the board. So it's definitely got some applications there. And against Dark Broly, you know, once they set up their board with, you know, their SR, their blocker, and their Broly that has hand destruction applications, that's 3 6-drops that they can bring out at any point in time. So you being able to just play one card that's going to get rid of all of them is going to put you further ahead. Granted, they'll be able to refacilitate their drop area with their leader skill, but it's definitely going to set them back a little bit, and that's what you want to do against Dark Broly. You want to set him back as much as possible until you can go for the kill turn. So those 2 cards are just highlights. The next card I want to go over is another black card. It's Haru Haru Attacker Majin. This is an older card that came out in set 3, but the fact I like it is because green is so heavily prevalent in the format right now with Gotenks. Haru Haru is like a side deck staple in my opinion. So if we're looking at her, she's a 3-drop 15k battle card with critical auto. When you play this card, you can burst 2. That's really irrelevant. But when you play this card, if your opponent's leader is green or yellow, you can switch 4 energy to active mode. The reason this is really good against green decks is because it's bait for Charismatic Villain. Now here's why. Charismatic Villain, even though it's a counterplay, it does not negate on-play autos. It just pops them. It just destroys them. So you'll tap 3 for Haru Haru. They're going to respond with Charismatic Villain. You're still going to be able to untap your 4 energy, which is going to put you right back where you started, but you baited 1 Charismatic Villain out of their hand. If they don't Charismatic Villain you, you're going to get your 4 energy, and you're going to have a critical striker on board. So in this specific deck, the skillless deck, I have to be careful with my Unison. If I have my Unison out on the board, Haru Haru will not trigger because it's an on-play auto. So I have to make sure that I'm sequencing properly, which is very important in the game of Dragon Ball. You want to make sure that you do your sequence properly to make sure that you don't miss out on any of your key skills. But for the most part, against green and yellow decks, there's not a lot that your opponent can do against Haru Haru that's going to stop their autos. As far as their counterplays in yellow, you have Prideful Transformation, which is really just going to come in and put Haru Haru in rest mode, but you're still going to get the auto. And in green is Charismatic Villain, you're still going to get the auto because it doesn't stop the auto. Like, it doesn't prevent it from being played. So Prideful Transformation would just tap it, and Charismatic Villain would just send it to, you know, KO it, but you're still going to get the auto. So that's some way of reutilizing, you know, energy if you need to make a further push, or if you want to bait out their counterplay to make a bigger play, you're still going to get your energy back reset for you so that you can, you know, continue furthering your board state. Outside of those 2 applications, you know, green Gotenks and any yellow deck, you know, obviously Sin Shenron is going to be able to stop Haru Haru's auto, so you definitely want to be careful with that. But for the most part, unless you're playing into a counterplay that your opponent specifically negates skills, which is, you know, yellow, that's what yellow's for, you have to be very careful. But against green, they don't really have many counterplays that negate skills. So unless they're playing like Preemptive Strike, which is super old and nobody plays anymore, or Hidden Power of the Saiyans, which I doubt anybody plays unless they're playing against blue. For the most part, green decks, their big counterplay is going to be Charismatic Villain Frieza, and Haru Haru does get around that because it's not being stopped, the auto. So the next card I want to go over is Max Power Kamehameha. I know Joey from Crossworld TCG did a video the other day about top cards that you should be side decking, and I completely agree with him. Max Power is so versatile. You can use it as a negate. You can get it back to your hand by sending 4 cards from your drop to your warp, and then activate main. It's spot removal for anything that's more than what your opponent currently has in energy. There's a lot of decks right now that play out battle cards that cost more than their current energy. Grim Reaper costs 6. He usually comes down on turn 2 or 3. The Broly chain, they usually go up the ladder by turn 3. Dark Broly, they can get out their 6 drops as early as like turn 1 or 2. Vegex. You know, Vegex can burst stuff into play, and they can have 1 or 2 energy. I mean, obviously, it's not as efficient in Vegex because really, you know, your only target is going to be, you know, Time Agent Vegeta, because he's going to be a 4-drop that's probably going to be on board as early as turn 1. So, you know, there's applications in certain areas and there aren't in others. But against, you know, Gogeta, like we said earlier, that's a rogue deck. You can send their pieces to the warp. Against Red Broly, against Gotenks, and against Dark Broly, which is like 75% of the meta, really. It's got a lot of really good applications. You got to be careful with cards that have barrier, obviously, because this card does not get around barrier. But for the most part, you can get rid of a lot of different, you know, threats that your opponent, you know, might be playing. I just like the card. There's not much more I can say about this card. I feel like it should be in everybody's side deck, especially, you know, a lot of good black cards can be played in the side deck because they have no energy. They have no specified cost. They just have a recruit cost basically, or a play cost, but they have no restricted black energy. So obviously they make for flexible side deck options, which is why I think Max Power is very, very good. And in a deck like Skillless Gohan, where you draw a crap ton of cards, you're going to see Max Power, you know, more often than not. So you're going to have it. As far as what to side in and what to side out, that's all matchup dependent, and that's really tough to go over, you know, on paper. You really have to be in the situation and see where you are, whether you're going into game 2 with a win or a loss. So that really all depends. It's all situational, but I think if you're building a 15-card sideboard, you definitely can't go wrong with the cards we've already talked about and the cards that we're going to talk about as we finish up the video here. But definitely Max Power Kamehameha is something to look into. I'm siding 1 restraint, you know, for that rogue invoker deck, you know, just in case you come across an invoker. It feels super bad getting hit with Victory Strike. So being able to have a drop counter and stopping the Victory Strike play is very, very important. So that's really the only reason why I run restraint. I draw enough cards in this deck to where I'm going to see it, or mulligan for it, or whatever it is. You know, by the time they get out their Victory Strike, I should have a restraint in the drop area, and that's just essentially going to save me from getting Victory Strike, you know, for game, because, you know, obviously, you know, Invoker has many ways of winning, whether it's Victory Strike or burning you, but if you can shut one of them down, then they have to go an alternate route, and that's just what we need as extension. You know, we just need to survive another turn. Gohan is really good at going wide. It's really bad at going tall, so you have to play smartly. Or, I don't even think smartly is a word. You have to play intelligently and make sure that you sequence properly, and hopefully, you know, you're utilizing your card knowledge and your matchup knowledge to, you know, further you and, you know, probably taking a win. So I think in everybody's side deck, especially in best of 3s, they should have at least 1 drop counter. In a best of 1, you probably argue playing it in the main board. I know there's not a lot of invokers running around right now, but I would hate to be not prepared for that specific matchup when there's 1 card that shuts it down. Like if you have a drop counter, you're in good shape. So that's 1 card I want to talk about. Draft Box 6 just released recently, and we got all of the new 1-drop silver bullets. So ChiChi Melee Matriarch is a 1-drop yellow with barrier. Auto, when this card is played, draw 1 card, so it's a 1-drop cantrip. Can't ask for anything more. Once per turn, when your opponent switches their energy to active mode using a counter skill, place up to 1 card in your opponent's life and 1 card in your opponent's energy in the drop area. So they crit 1 life and they KO and energy, basically. This is just my answer to blue, but specifically Blue Baby. Blue Baby, I think, is a really good deck. It's very underplayed, but I would hate to come across it and not be prepared for it. So I think the ChiChis really help. In a vacuum, 1 ChiChi probably doesn't do a lot, but if you have 2 of them on the board, and because they have barrier, I don't know if Baby has a lot of interaction with barrier, but if you have 2 of them on the board, you're going to get more value out of it, and it's going to draw you 2 cards, obviously, in the same process. Against regular blue decks, they have the option of untapping with Dimension Magic, so I guess you just hope for the best there. I mean, their Dimension Magic is going to cost them just 1 to negate, and they won't be able to untap, which is still really good. But for the most part, this really hard counters Baby, and then just kind of soft counters good blue stuff deck. So I would definitely consider, in your respective color, whether it's red, green, blue, or even black now, I would definitely side deck any number of these. I'm side decking 4 just because I had the space. Worst case scenario, if I side 4 of them and I don't need them, I can always charge them or combo them off. So it's really not a bad situation to be in. And then the last card I wanted to go over is a super spicy tech card that I just randomly came across when I was sorting through my bulk, right? We have Sun Gohan and Videl Power Couple. Now, this came out in the Saiyan Surge expansion set with Surge Coup back in set 9. So I was not playing the game at this point, so I really had no idea what this card did until I started organizing my bulk and going through my expansion stuff and separating foils and non-foils and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's a Gohan card. Let me read it. And boy, was I impressed when I read it. So he's an energy exhaust, or I should say he and she are an energy exhaust. It doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters. What matters is this. Activate main for 1 yellow. If your leader is yellow and you place this card from your hand in your drop area, you draw 1 card, then you choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and they get minus 5k power for the duration of the turn. So at worst, this card is a 1-drop cantrip, right? You pay 1 yellow, you send it to the drop, you draw a card. Now, if you're playing against any pesky strategies that utilize their 1-drops, so Black Mass Saiyan, Aider from the Kid Coup deck, right? Anything that's a 1-drop with barrier, or or a 5k blocker. Broly BR plays Ba, like they could play like 3 Bas in 1 turn, if they mill right, or if they activate Vampa properly. So being able to just get rid of 2 of them and then following up with an overwhelm play, potentially, whether it's Secret Identity or Fully Unleashed, you're clearing the board of a lot of different things. For 1 yellow energy, I think this card is fantastic. The new Silver Bullets, even though I'm not untapping in my deck, they do have barrier, so there is an application here for decks that want to, that play yellow and want to have, barrier hate, so to speak. And even at worst, right? If there's a problematic battle card that your opponent has on the board, okay, and you can't get over it because you can't attack it, right? So it's like a 20k or something like that. You can always -5 and then try to go in, right? So I think this card is very good in certain applications. I'm glad that I accidentally came across it, because in my opinion, this was the card that I was missing from the side deck, because I like to have options for different things. I don't want to get caught in a bad situation where I'm not going to be able to climb out of it. And this card against the Kid Coup matchup, getting rid of their aiders, because they're never going to turn sideways with their aiders, and yellow doesn't really have removal, being able to get rid of their aiders so that they can't combo their 1-drops and start popping your board is huge, especially because the 2-drop Aider and Kid Goku that they got in the anniversary box allows you to combo and rest. So that Aider is always going to be live for when Kid Gokus are leaving the board. And it's just ridiculous. So I want to be able to have answers for it. Also, in the red skillless deck, there's a 2-drop, I think his name is Sansa, the one that you can switch him to rest mode and restand all your 1-drops. He's a 5k barrier. So there's a lot of applications for this card as things start to, unearth themselves. And I'd rather have it than not and need it. You know what I'm saying? So I just really like this card. It's been testing super well in best of 3s. If I wasn't playing a best of 3, I probably wouldn't main deck this card. I would probably just deal with the consequences and just try to have an answer to it somehow. But the fact that I have an extra 15 cards in my sideboard, to utilize for my minus matchups, that's the whole beauty of having a sideboard. And that's pretty much it. Those are the 15 cards that we're siding. We did make that adjustment to the main board like we mentioned before, but this is what I'm going to be running at my shop championship this weekend at Gamer's Edge. So if you guys are watching, if you're in the tri-state area and you want to come down to the shop and support the local shop and get a couple of games in of Dragon Ball Super, our shop championship is going to start at 6 p.m. This Saturday, November 21st. We're going to be doing the event packs and the errata packs, for entry and stuff like that. So if you want to come down and play a couple games, hopefully we'll see you there. So again, I do apologize for those who are looking forward to the podcast, but I hope that this video just kind of shed some light on, how I see this deck and how I plan on playing it and how I plan on countering certain matchups. And if you have any questions, just, message me or let me know in the comment section down below. Let's open this up for discussion for all of you avid, skillless Gohan Icarus players out there. I would definitely encourage you to try this build out and let me know like if it works for you, and if there's any other tech choices or options that you guys have been utilizing that you've had success with. Please let me know. I'm probably going to be playing this deck for the majority of set 11 until we get new product and maybe this deck gets more support or whatever the case may be. But I love playing this deck. Gohan is my favorite character, and I love that they actually brought Icarus into the game too, so I'm really happy with that. I wish he was actually named Icarus and not Higher Dragon, but I guess you can't ask for too much. But yeah, I mean, this is basically it. This is what I'm going to be taking. I'm very confident, and I hope you guys are having success or the same success that I am. So let me know what you guys think, like I said, in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Be there or be squared.